The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this podcast belong solely to those expressing them and do not necessarily reflect the OSIP Foundation Incorporated or any other group or individual. This podcast may contain dialogue or subject material that could be considered for mature audiences only. All aspects of How You Play the Game and the OSIP Foundation Incorporated are protected by copyright and other state and federal intellectual property laws. Unauthorized use without the express written consent of the OSIP Foundation Incorporated is strictly prohibited. If you're interested in sponsoring How You Play the Game, please email us at podcast@osipfoundation.org. Your sponsorship may be tax deductible.
So I hear that you claim to be rather philanthropic.
Yes.
Yes?
In certain aspects.
In certain aspects? Should I dive a little deeper?
Well, it depends on how much you want to dig into the problem.
If I dig, will I discover acorns and avocados?
Oh, huge stock in acorns and avocados.
Is it
lots of farms down there?
Is it stocks or stonks?
It stanks. That's what it is.
Wow. Okay. All right. I will do this. All right. In the words of Carl Bretanna-Nanalewski.
You want to get weird?
Let's get weird. Look, it's the end of January, start of February. Spring training isn't here. It's rainy. What do you want us to do? Okay.
Right.
I think I
was practicing my golf swing in the mirror like
really?
at least 10 times a day.
Out of 24 shows a year, I think we're allowed to phone one or two in.
Yeah.
You know, and out of one or two, I mean 5 or 6.
It's fine.
It's fine. Just fine.
Just fine.
Yep. Oh, well, welcome to How You Play the Game. As I say it so depressingly, the official podcast of the OSIP Foundation Incorporated. I'm Jack Furlong.
You sound like my accountant.
I did the Ron Burgundy thing with the question mark at the end of the prompter.
Oh.
Yeah. Welcome as we talk to you about sportsmanship. I'm really trying to phone, like I'm phoning in the phoning in is what I'm doing now.
I've never seen that. That's amazing.
You know what that is? That's like when you take the two phones and you turn one upside down and you push them together so that the people on the phone can talk to each other.
Yes.
You know, that's basically what that is.
Wouldn't you get a lot of feedback that way?
You know what? That's not my problem. That's the problem of the people who are on the phone.
Okay.
Because at that point,
that's what we call conference calls.
Right. I have removed myself from the equation at that point.
Right.
Okay. What else? Oh, so as always, you can check us out online at osipfoundation.org. Email is podcast@osipfoundation.org. Social media is facebook.com/OSIP Foundation, X formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram @OSIP Foundation, #How You Play the Game. This is the first episode of the month of February. The year is 2024, and the man across from me is the producer engineer, Mr. Sean Ryan. Howdy, Sean. Now that I've set things up for a completely depressing show, how are you?
My college semester started, so
talk about depressing.
I'm teaching 2 classes now, and some private applied lessons as well.
So did you start drinking or?
Oh yeah,
good.
Even before the semester.
Yeah.
So oh yeah, it's gonna be that kind. It's started off okay. I'm kind of taking bets with myself to see when it's gonna take a dive bomb. I would say probably by week 3.
I'm still waiting for you to get fired.
Well, I've been miraculously managing to avoid that.
I mean, everybody's getting fired at academia now, so
right. So we'll see what happens.
I need you to want to join the club to which you aspire to be, which is with me. That was a long way of saying, come join me on this side.
So George Costanza?
Yes.
So I
can Costanza.
Try to get fired.
Lord of the idiots.
I can't fail it. I'm failing at getting fired.
Someone said to me the other day, like, I just feel like an absolute idiot. And I went, no, You know, look who you're talking to. For I am Costanza, Lord of the
Lord
Idiots.
of the Idiots.
All right, well, let's dive into this bad boy.
Yeah.
We got an interesting one for you today. This is a story that came across on the 25th of January. That would have been known as a Thursday.
Yep.
And the night prior to that would have been a Wednesday evening. And there was a basketball game between the Dallas Mavericks and the Phoenix Suns. And I believe the game was in Dallas, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
It was.
So this ESPN article comes from Tim McMahon, and the headline is Mavs Luka Doncic asks security to eject heckling fan in loss. I actually was watching a little bit of this game at the bar prior, and then I left, and I didn't see all of this part. And then when I kind of woke up and was just like, drinking my coffee, I saw this, and I was like, what? So Luka Doncic is a, superstar for the Dallas Mavericks and whatnot. And apparently what happened was he was assessed with a technical foul and was also asked for a heckler to be ejected during the third quarter. And it was a weird scenario. So according to the article, it says here in the third quarter, Doncic reacted to the heckler, a Suns fan who wore a Booker L. Valley jersey while sitting in the second row behind the midcourt press area late in the third quarter. The man shouted, quote, "Luka, you're tired. Get your ass on the treadmill." Which is ironic because I think many people have yelled that at you and me.
Oh yeah.
And we don't ask anybody.
Treadmill?
Yeah.
What is this?
Amateur hour?
If my ass isn't in a golf cart.
Yeah. Treadmill.
I'm not doing it right.
Maybe a pepper mill.
Right.
Because I'm going to put pepper on something. Like a salad that Chris Conroy is not eating.
Right. I was just going to say. Steak? Come on.
Yeah.
Go to Chicago to order a salad.
Exactly. There I am in a classy restaurant in Chicago, and I order a salad, and the waitress says, "Would you care for some fresh ground pepper?" And I said, not only would I like that pepper, I'll take the pepper that is not going on Chris Conroy's salad. Oh, he doesn't even have a salad. Wow.
I'll take the treadmill.
I'll take the... Oh, man. I can't believe he's gonna magically reappear on the show one day and just be like, "The hell were you guys saying about me?" Jeez,
Crash the podcast.
Yeah,
that'd be pretty funny. Actually.
That would be funny. So anyway, moving back to Luka Doncic, he was walking near midcourt and he turned around and he stared at this fan when the fan said it. As Doncic jogged back on defense, he waved towards the Mavs vice president of security, pointed at the fan and gestured that he wanted him ejected. Doncic then approached the security chief on the court during the break between quarters, pointing at the fan and requested for him to be ejected. The fan left without further incident after being approached by an arena staffer. A Maverick source said Thursday that the fan exited voluntarily and was not actually ejected. Doncic took umbrage with the reporting of his request for the fan's ejection. Doncic said, quote, "He was cursing me the whole first half too." End quote, when he was asked why he didn't ask for the fan to be ejected during the first half, Doncic said, quote, "Because I never would eject a fan. They paid for tickets, but I had enough. It's a little bit of frustration." After the Suns sliced a let's see here. Oh, this is about his technical foul. He picked up a technical foul while limping to the locker room, having twisted the right ankle that he sprained earlier this month. And crew chief David Guthrie told a pool reporter, quote, "He had complained multiple times and was asked to stop prior to that. He did not stop, but continued his complaining. And again, as he was leaving the floor at halftime, he yelled and complained at the officials again." The article goes on to talk about Jason Kidd, their coach, yelling at the team. Okay, so the whole reason that I brought this whole thing up was because of the idea that there are a couple of different angles here. First of all, let's look at the angle that the media is claiming that Doncic asked for this fan to be ejected. Doncic then goes on record as saying, I would never do that. And the media continued to basically run the narrative that, yes, he was, ejected.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like I guess right off the bat, it's like, oh, okay, so the media controls the narrative,
Right.
rather than go with the facts of, giving the headline of Doncic is frustrated or whatever, appears to ask a fan to be ejected. The article is written in a way where essentially the claim is he asked for the fan to be ejected, and then towards the latter half of the article, as they're going into it, he says, I would never do that. So it's rather than report the facts, it's make an assertion and force somebody to deny it.
Right.
Which, right off the bat, is not good.
I mean, it seems like, too, the article was pointing out that was it what's his name? Doncic?
Luka Doncic.
Luka Doncic was not having a great season to begin with.
Well, he was having a bad game from the get-go. And he's frustrated. He twisted his ankle. I mean, he's a superstar.
I think they're spinning it in a way where, like, they're saying, oh, well, he can't take it. And, like, he's being a baby about it. But when you kind of, it's one of those situations where you kind of have to be there. And you have to be, like, I don't know, not only there, but, like, right where it was happening. Because I feel like you could look at this from both sides. Like, okay, well, as a professional athlete, you need to sort of block out the distractions.
Right.
But how far can you take that? Right? Like, so what, I mean, Luka, you're tired, get your ass on the treadmill. I mean, that's a personal attack, but how many times do fans, and I'm not excusing fans for saying this, but how many times does this happen? Like,
well,
Yeah,
I mean, now that's like the steps 2 and 3 of the discussion that I want to have here, because the first part was the media in the reporting of the story.
And we're definitely framing it in a way to make Doncic look like a loser.
Right.
Like,
the second part of the story is the fan who is crossing a boundary.
Right.
The third part of the story is Doncic, gesturing, or the reports that he is gesturing to have the fan removed. Whether or not he leaves of his own volition is part of that story. Okay,
Yeah.
but we'll examine the fact that it appeared that a superstar had the ability to tell someone to leave.
Right.
Okay. And then the fourth part of the story is then to extrapolate from that and say, wait a second. So a superstar has the ability to do that, but when an authority figure like an official assesses a penalty for something inappropriate,
Right.
we get all upset and whatnot, whether it's a technical foul, like an in-game penalty or an ejection or something like that. So now there's a double standard to examine.
Right.
Okay. So we've looked at the media side of it, which is right off the bat, we need to be cognizant of what we're being fed.
Yes.
Because that's poor sportsmanship on the part of the media, is that rather than reporting exactly what was happening, it was the story was manipulated, shall we say, and presented in a way that gave off a particular narrative. And I guess the moral of the story is it could have been presented better. Rather than passing judgment, it's more along the lines of saying there are better ways to get this point across without subconsciously planting a seed one way or the other.
Right.
Agreed?
Yeah.
Okay. So then the next part of it is, like you said, the fan.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we at a point? I mean, I guess we've always been at this point, but this idea that I pay money for these tickets. I have the right to go in and say, act, do, etc., so long as I'm not violating any law, based upon what the fact that I paid for the right to be here. I mean, where's that line? Why do we as fans have the notion that, okay, I just paid for these tickets, I paid an astronomical amount for these tickets. I'm, pretty darn close to the court. Why do I think that I have the right then to heckle people?
Right.
And what, I mean, where do we go with that?
Yeah. Al, I mean, a large part of that question is rhetorical,
right?
Because you can't. There's always a gray area, and it's always dependent on context, right? So take the incident where, what was it? The Orioles, the kid that caught the Orioles home run over the fence. What was his name? Oh God, remember this? He interfered.
You're talking about the Jeffrey Mayer game?
Yes.
Okay, so he caught Derek Jeter's home run against the Orioles.
Right. So that's a situation in which a fan needs to be removed because he blatantly interfered with the game, right? Okay. So that's a line we can definitively draw, right?
It's called it's a literal boundary. You step into the boundary of the playing field.
Right. Yeah. So you're that's when you should be removed. And like streaking and bodysuit man, these are
if you cross the line and actually enter live ball territory,
right? You should be removed. Or if you throw something onto the field,
yes,
right, to obstruct the flow of the game.
You penetrate live ball territory, which sounds like the title of my upcoming erotic novel.
Right. So if you're very philanthropic about it.
Philanthropic about
it. No. So I think that's a line that we can draw. Okay. But when it comes to verbal, I feel like heckling has so many different contexts because I'm not saying that when you heckle a fan, you're getting towards the point of that line, right? Depending on how severe the heckling is.
You're saying when you heckle as a fan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or, I'm sorry, heckling towards a
player.
A player. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
As a fan, depending on what you say, you get pretty close to that line, and as you often say, asymptotic relationship.
Thank you.
With that line, right?
Big words.
You get closer and closer and closer and closer without actually touching it. And I get the player's frustration with that, especially in terms of, with basketball, the fans are a lot closer to the court than in baseball. Like with baseball, there's more spread out. It's harder to hear sometimes the fans over all the other noise, right? Same thing with football. They're more spread out. They're farther away.
The dynamics of the stadium are such where the sound's not even going to get there.
Right.
Whether even if it's a closed roof stadium in baseball or football,
right,
chances of one voice traveling to a point where it can be heard
gets obstructed. It's
just not going to happen.
Right. So in basketball, it's much more intimate.
Yeah.
The setting is much more intimate. The court is like a stage at that point.
It's like a black box stage.
Like a theater in the round or a black box theater. So if you're 2 rows back and you're literally like 10 feet from the court, you're right there.
Yep.
It's very easy to hear a fan heckling you. So in that context, if it's getting to the point where it's affecting the course of the game, and the fans are that close, that's a close call. That's literally, but
I see what you did there.
But you're pretty much touching that line at that point, and depending on what's been said, I mean, get your ass on the treadmill. I mean, that's not the worst thing to say. It's bad, but it's not the worst thing to say.
Did he drop an F-bomb? Did he say something racist, or
did he say something against his family, or anything?
Was
threatening?
there a threat? Yeah.
Yeah. Was it like, see, that's where if it's a threat to his family or a threat to or his friends or anyone he knows, or if it's an F-bomb and like it's repeatedly, and it's like, I'm gonna meet you in the parking lot.
Right.
Like, okay, he needs to be removed. That's a verbal threat. That's different.
Right.
But if it's germane to his performance within the game, I don't know. You're still sort of just below that line, I think.
Well, it's,
you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean, because liken it to what we do as musicians. An audience comes to hear us perform. Mm-hmm. We essentially, allow people to do the same thing, but at the same time, we wouldn't like it if people, in the audience did not applaud, did not cheer, did not, said negative things, etc. Mm-hmm. It seems like the two ends of the spectrum are, in philosophy, people who pay money to go to these events, whether it's a sporting event or a performance or anything like that, should probably think better and say, I'm going to act like an adult here,
right, and
I'm not going to say these things.
Right.
Okay, I will cheer for my team, not against the other team. Mm-hmm. Okay, all the basic principles of good sportsmanship and fandom. Right. Those are the things that they need to do. On the other side of it, though, like you said, if they're not crossing that line, they're not. It's not worth taking significant action, because they didn't really, break a law. There's no violation of a rule or a statute.
Right.
They're just being jerks.
Right.
And I think part of sportsmanship is also understanding that, there are going to be jerks out there. Mm-hmm. There are going to be really, really mean, nasty people out there. We want to tell them to stop it, but we don't have the ability to say, we have to legislate against this.
Yeah.
And that's what,
because then that sets a precedent.
Exactly.
Because if every player ejected a fan who said something negative about their performance, then there would be no more fans.
Right.
A lot of fans would be gone.
We'd be like playing in 2020 with no fans.
Right.
So, and that leads
no
into
fans as opposed to only fans.
Exactly. For no fans only. This kind of leads us into the third part of this, which is, we talked about the media, we talked about a fan who shouldn't be saying this, and whether or not that's okay. And then the third part of it is, as you just said, why does a player have the ability to have this happen? I get, again, as Mr. Sensitive that I am, I understand it. But isn't that also kind of part of the gig? If you are, whether you agree with this or not, because I'm not trying to make a declaration here. I'm trying to put it out into the arena for debate. If you are on a sports team like this, or if you are a performer of some sort, getting paid money to do this stuff, and people are paying to come and see you, isn't this part of the gig? If you're going to get paid, and granted, I'm going down a certain rabbit hole here. If you're going to get paid an exorbitant amount of money to play a sport, to entertain people, it's whether it's true or whether it should be or shouldn't be, it's inherently part of the gig that you almost have to absorb this stuff.
Yeah.
it's which is ironic because in real life we shouldn't be that way.
Right.
Okay. But why is it that, or maybe the question should be asked, should we be doing this more? But like you said, if we did it more, we'd probably be creating more problems because there would be no fans at the games.
Right.
We'd be losing fans because people would then be teasing them saying, "Oh, this guy can't take it."
Right.
Who knows if that would then lead into the financial aspect of the team is now losing money because this great superstar can't get along with the fans.
Right.
So now we have to cut the superstar.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a soap opera.
Right.
It's the whole, it really goes into a very, very weird realm.
And I would say, in terms of, as a fan, it's okay to be upset. It's okay to vent your frustration. It's okay to express your displeasure at someone's lack of, athletic ability, okay, to some degree. I mean, it's okay to be frustrated, but it's in how you say things, right? So, like, or if you're, you could also look at it in a way of, okay, well, if a fan on one team is berating the superstar of another, in some ways you could almost look at that as a compliment, because they're either jealous or they want them to not succeed because they feel threatened that, hey, maybe this guy might is good enough to perform and win against our team.
I think that's the old Reggie Jackson line. They don't boo nobodies.
Right.
Yeah. If you're getting booed, if you're getting heckled, especially on a professional level, there's actually more to to it than meets the eye, which is you're pretty damn good.
Yeah.
And you're going to win at the end of the day because you're going to have the paycheck at the end of the day.
Right.
Then it speaks to the idea of why do we have to, bring the people whose success down notches? Like, what are we is the general public responsible for the humility of the people who are in those positions? It's like I got a lot of other things to do. I don't have a lot of time or energy to worry about heckling people like that.
Right.
Good for them that they're making all this money. I got to pay my bills. Thank you.
Yeah. Their
success does not equal my failure. And if I heckle them to remind them that they, I don't like you because you're good for the other team.
Well, then
they're still running circles around me financially.
If anything, you're giving them more fuel.
Exactly.
You're
not
ways.
winning here. Okay.
Right.
I mean, this is a zero-sum game. Nobody.
Right. And as a fan, you're not the one on the court.
Right.
So just like, it's you are superimposing your feelings on another team. And I mean, look, so, I mean, in a way, that sort of reinforces the idea of that it's part of the game.
Right.
Okay. So athletes should then turn that around and say, wow, he must really have respect for me.
Or he's really scared of me.
Or he's really feels really threatened that I'm actually going to win for my team.
And the other part of that, too, is at this level, these teams employ a lot of psychological experts to basically tell these superstar athletes, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to prepare you for it. So they are being trained, they are being groomed to know what to do when this stuff happens.
Right.
Whether that's right or wrong is a different story.
Right.
But it's not like this, wide-eyed innocent person is walking onto this court and has no idea what's about to happen.
Right.
There are doctors in the locker room saying, okay, when you walk out there, this might happen. And you have to remember, I got to shut this out and play my game and collect millions of dollars at the end of the day.
Right.
I'm slightly paraphrasing here.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, it's one of those things where I equate that to like a psychological expert saying, okay, be prepared to take heckling, to like, all right, well, wear a helmet in football to to be prepared for the possible concussions.
Right.
You know? It's like that Jerry Seinfeld joke. Instead of avoiding these head-banging activities altogether, we create the helmet.
Right. So that we can continue to do these dangerous things.
Right. Right. So it's like, I get it. But then you have the overarching question of, well, wait a second. There's this paradoxical source to this problem that if you try to solve it, then nobody has fun. And so it's like, okay, do we cease these activities altogether, or do we train the athletes or the people involved to accept it? But what does that do in the long run for them?
Right.
Because again, you have to think of, so both physical problems and mental problems have long-term effects. So what if these same people who were trained to take it, sometime down the line, crack?
Yep. That's very possible.
So then there's a bigger problem,
Right.
that can arise as a result of this constant barrage of heckling. I mean, look at officials.
Oh, yeah.
Officials are leaving the sports at an alarming rate. I mean, that's the long-term disastrous effect of this constant badgering,
Right.
and belligerent behavior that's leading to this, right?
Yeah.
So what's to say that a fan an athlete who constantly is bombarded with this psychological torture in a way, is told to put up with it, does put up with it now, but then later cracks? It's like the serenity now, it's insanity later.
It's like when you interrogate a suspect, or you're trying to train a new agent. The amount of psychological manipulation that goes into it is, I mean, it's insane,
right?
What these people have discovered.
Or going into the military, even.
Exactly.
Like,
you're going to break these people down so that they can rebuild you. Yeah.
Right.
Before we go into this thing about the officials, I just do want to go back to Jerry Seinfeld for a second and ask, what is the point of the helmet during the skydiving? I mean, can you almost make it? I got news for you. You jump out of that plane, that chute doesn't open. That helmet is now wearing you for protection. After you hit the ground, the helmet is back at the store with all the other helmets saying, it's a good thing he was there, or I would have hit the ground directly. Now we can go into the official part of it.
Yes.
But you raise a fantastic point, is why is it that a superstar like Doncic can ask for the ejection of a fan, or allegedly do this because of the narrative of the story.
Right.
And yet the flip side of that is when a sports official issues some sort of penalty, whether it's an ejection or, a technical foul or something like that, the players, the coaches, the media, the fans go up in arms,
right?
When essentially what they're saying is, you can't act like a child. So let me get this straight. A superstar athlete can say to a fan, you can't act like a child, and get him removed, allegedly. But an official, a basketball referee, can't tell a superstar, you can't act like a child, and assess a technical foul, because then the world's going to end.
Right. So I have 2 points to that. One, I think the article almost paints the fan as when they say he voluntarily left, it almost paints the fan as innocent in a way.
Right.
Like, oh, well, oh, I guess what he said wasn't, I guess what he did wasn't that bad since he just, it's not like he was putting up a fight, right? The fan was like fighting with security or whatever,
Well,
right?
and the article says that apparently someone came down and said something to him, and
Right.
he
But
left of
he,
his own volition.
right.
You
So
know,
so they're almost making him look like, I don't want to say innocent, but not as guilty,
right?
right? So that's the first thing. So to your second point, I think, and this is me playing devil's advocate here, I think the reason why a superstar allegedly ejecting a fan isn't this quite the same thing as an official ejecting a superstar is that a superstar ejecting a fan doesn't necessarily affect the game as
Right.
much as an official ejecting a superstar. I mean, this comes from people being frustrated, but the overarching principle is still the same, I think. Like the like why aren't more people up in arms about, a superstar ejecting a fan? Like just like the general idea of it. But I think the practicality is that when an official ejects a player, that can directly impact the rest of the game. Whereas if one fan leaves, you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. The question, and I'm not saying you're wrong, because I think your point is valid. I think that the response to that, if I were to go the next step, is to say, why do we put so much emphasis then on the game?
Right.
Like
that makes sense.
So let me get this straight. The outcome of a game where essentially it's just dollars and cents and bragging rights,
right,
plays more of a role than human behavior.
Yes.
And how we act as a society.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
So the same tantrum can happen in two different places and get two different results, essentially.
Right.
Because if we transpose that type of thing to, a household with, a parent and a kid, it's going to be even different then.
Right.
I just don't. I don't like I certainly understand that the game gets affected if the superstar is ejected.
Right.
There's no argument
nice
there.
Little rhyme there.
Thank you. I'm a poet and I don't know it. No, I don't get it. I'll have to explain it to myself.
Okay.
See, poet and know it rhyme.
Oh, got it.
All right.
I have to think about that one.
You and me both. I'm tired now. Back to the beginning of the episode where I'm just phoning it in. Losing a participant in the game will potentially affect the outcome of the game. You have removed someone from playing and possibly affecting the outcome.
Right.
Totally get it. No argument there.
But then your counter argument is why focus so much on the game?
Right.
Why focus so much? Why is it that important?
No, and why do we
humanity?
Then and why then do we also look at the behavior differently? I mean, at that point, we're what we're doing at that point, and I know this is apples and oranges. I totally know this, and I do not want to go down this road.
I totally know it. I
totally know it. Okay, what we're almost doing, and believe me when I preface this by saying the last thing I want to do is get into any woke philosophy. Okay,
right.
But it sounds like we're almost going to start scratching the surface of the same crime being committed by two different people. Mm-hmm. One happens to be of one ethnicity and the other a different one.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
We have changed, excuse me. We have wow. This is God's way of saying, don't do this. Or your way of saying, sorry.
Yes.
We've almost reached a point where essentially what we're doing is we're looking at the same crime with different variables slightly changed.
Right.
And the outcome of the crime, when that variable is ancillary in theory. Okay? The outcome of a game in theory is as useless a fact as someone's race, gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, disability, religion, or age, necessarily.
Right.
Okay? So, as a result of that, why then do we allow one? Why are we focusing so much on the again, I'm using slang here, the woke aspect in our society,
Right.
but at the same time saying, well, we can't have the outcome of this game affected because a superstar player did something naughty. He should have the right to do something naughty and a very bad, naughty superstar. Yeah. He can talk, he can say these mean and terrible things to an official, and the official has to take it because he's a superstar playing a game. But then the mean, nasty fan can say the mean, nasty things to the superstar, and the superstar can say, no, I don't want him here. He's being mean and nasty.
So when you phrase it that way, yeah, that's why I'm saying, like, you the overarching principle is still the same.
Right.
Right. The outcome of the game is ancillary.
Yes.
Ancillary.
Secondary.
Secondary.
Not as important.
Supplemental.
Other than the fact that capitalism is a thing.
Right. So, but what I'm saying is that that's sort of. I'm not saying that I particularly agree with that. It's just that I'm saying that other fans could look at it that way.
Yes. No, I get that. I totally get that.
But yeah, I mean, you're looking at three parties: the fan, the player, and the official.
Right.
If the official can't, if the official says to a superstar, "Hey, that's a foul," and the superstar argues, and he's allowed to argue, and fans look at that as like, oh yeah, stripes, come on, let's get in the game here, but then when the superstar says to the fan, get out, I can't take the heckling.
Right.
Well then, right. So then when it's that black and white, no pun intended.
I see what you did there.
You can sort of dissect that and say, okay, well, you should be able to apply one thing from one aspect of the story to another. So I get that.
I'll give you a quick example too. In officiating, the rule of thumb that is used in teaching is, when does an argument become personal? There's a difference between a coach coming out to an official and saying, that call fucking sucked. Mm-hmm. Versus, you fucking suck.
Right.
Okay. If I'm umpiring a game and a coach says, and we'll put it at the high school level, so I'll change the language. If a coach comes out and says to me, that call cost us, I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. But if a coach says, you cost us, now he's crossed the line,
right?
And I enforce a penalty, usually an ejection. And, talk to any sports official, you'll get some, statement kind of in the same realm. So right. So if we transpose this to the, this situation here, Luka Doncic is not allowed to say to an official, you need to do better, without getting a penalty assessed. So then a fan can't say to Luka Doncic, you suck, without a penalty getting assessed. So it's going both ways here.
Right.
Where, we ultimately have to determine, where are we falling on this? Because it sounds like we've got multiple feet in multiple pools.
Right.
It's not even just one side of the fence, or we're on both sides of the fence here. There are a lot of fences.
Right.
Okay.
I would also say, like, another thing to consider is look at the context and the careers involved, right? So it's an official's job to officiate a game. Mm-hmm. It's a player's job to play a game. A fan's, they're not required to be there.
No.
Right? That's not their job. Right? So when a fan heckles
They're a
a
consumer
player,
at that point.
yeah, when a fan heckles a player, it's like, okay, well, the player can just, I mean, at that point, well, you don't fucking play.
Yeah.
Like you're not
You
out
get
here.
up here and do this.
Right. It's
You
like
know?
the same, and then an official can say that
Right.
to a player or a coach
Or a fan.
and say,
You know how many
hey,
times we've gone
come
to
out-
fans and said, you guys are having a great game, much better than me. Why don't you get out here and do this?
right, right. So that's another angle to look at, and I mean, it's, I don't know.
If you think about
sort
it,
of like it's like the elephant and the flea. It's like,
Right.
you okay, do I spend my time arguing with this flea, or do I just stomp him, get
Right.
out of the way, and just ignore him?
Well,
Get
and
out
the
of the
other
way.
part of this is I mentioned capitalism. Okay, the fan is a consumer.
Right.
Okay, we as consumers in a free market economy, especially in this day and age, have the right to let our wallets and our voices do the talking to a certain degree.
Right.
If we don't like something, we don't pay. You know,
Yeah.
like if a restaurant does not meet my expectations, I decide I'm not going to that restaurant anymore.
Right.
I also have the option, if I really want to, I can go online and talk about how this restaurant doesn't meet my expectations.
Right.
Okay, but at the same
Or in your
time,
case, write a letter.
right? Exactly. I'm a letter writer. But now here's the thing. As a letter writer, like I'll go down this road. I will.
Oh, damn it.
You see what you
This
did
is really
here?
this one was my fault, isn't
Yes,
it?
yes. No, you will take the blame for this, God. As a letter writer, essentially what I'm doing is I'm expressing my displeasure to the person who displeased me. With an online review, it's almost like the mob mentality of saying, hey, everybody, this guy sucks. Let's all get him.
Right.
So where do we go with that? You know, but you don't have to do that. Is it your right to do that? I mean, there's nothing stopping you. You're not breaking a law. If you as a fan don't like something, don't pay to go to the game.
Right.
Don't watch the game.
This is just like when we were talking about Dave Chappelle and the
Exactly.
closer. It's like,
Right.
if you think it's offensive, then don't watch it.
Right. Cancel your Netflix subscription.
Right.
Do you really need to go on blast everywhere and just say Dave Chappelle is the devil?
And you shouldn't watch him either.
Right.
Like, sorry, I can make up my own mind.
Right. Why do I then have to, or what is the point of going online and writing the negative review?
Right.
I mean,
Well,
is there a point to it? There can be a point to it.
Well, it's funny because, like, remember we were talking about Gina Carano in The
Right.
Mandalorian, and there were a lot of people who canceled their Disney Plus subscription because
Right.
of that. And the only reason I didn't was because there were other shows I wanted to watch.
Right.
So you kind of have to, I hate to say it, but you kind of have to put up with the necessary evil in a way. But now, I've canceled my subscription and I'm just gonna reactivate it again for the Bad Batch, and then
Same here.
cancel it again when it's over. It's it's because it's a matter of principle at that point. I mean, you combine with, okay, it's going to make a dent financially for me because Disney Plus, I think, what did they raise their rates like to $15 a month?
Depends on whether or not you want the commercials, I think.
I'll take the commercials.
You and me
I
both.
mean, at this point, I mean, this is ridiculous. So, but my point is, if you want to make a statement about you not agreeing with something, don't subscribe to it and don't pay for it then.
Right.
It's as simple as that. It's like, but if there are shows that you do like on a certain platform, then shut up and put up with it.
Right.
Like, sorry, you can't have it both ways.
Sorry.
It's like, okay, well, I didn't like that Disney fired Gina Carano, but because of what she said. But like, what am I going to do?
I
mean,
like The Mandalorian,
I like the show.
So
So I'm allowed that cognitive dissonance. I'm allowed to think, okay, well, they're wrong for doing this, but it doesn't make me hypocritical.
I've decided that I value watching this show, so I'm going to watch it.
Right.
But when I'm not going to keep the subscription going afterwards.
Yeah.
That's my solution to it.
That's the compromise in my head with which I came.
It's like, I'll give you another quick example before we wrap. We're talking about the idea of the online review and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when my sister got married back in 2014, so my mom was, paying for the venue and all that stuff. And at the end of the night, she was really displeased with the way that the venue treated people. She was like, and she called them and said, "Look, I'm paying you people a lot of money, okay? And the food was great, the venue was great, all that was good. What I don't like is the fact that with all that money that I spent, you had the audacity to treat my guests and my family a particular way. And as a result of that, I would like you to try and make it right somehow." They declined. And as a result, my mother said, "Okay, leaving reviews now." Capitalism. I went to you and I said, "This isn't cool." Okay. And it's not like you went in and again, how thin do you want to slice the bologna here? It was the way that you treated my family was really not good. I'd like to think that you could make up for it somehow, giving me a little bit of my money back. I don't want the whole thing back.
Right.
But show some remorse for someone who just dropped a large chunk of change.
Or at the very least, a public apology.
Something.
Just like or a complimentary dinner or what? Yeah,
Right.
I mean, it's not. See, here's the thing about big. They're a big company. They can afford to shell out a dinner.
Yeah.
Over someone being mistreated. Wouldn't you rather that than all the negative press?
You would think.
Just be like, okay, just give them, just out of a sense of defeat and resignation, just be like, okay, just give them the dinner. Just give them a $50 voucher.
Right.
Just that's enough.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's a way of apologizing. And there you go. That's great.
It's kind of part of the job description too, is if you're the manager or something and someone reports that to you, then you go and you say, "Okay, talk to me about this." And you make determinations from there. Right. Because like you said, there could be cognitive dissonance. You might interview your employee who's being accused of this, and the employee might say, "Well, actually, this is how I saw it. I didn't think I did that. I'm sorry that it happened that way and that they would perceive this. Wasn't my intention." And then you look at it and you go, "Okay, it is what it is." And we arrive at the same conclusion. Throw you the $50 for the dinner. We're done.
Right. Yeah.
Case closed.
Right. Move on.
It's not a federal case anymore.
Right.
I like this type of an episode, even though I claimed we phoned it in, and by we I mean me. Because
I actually don't think we phoned it in.
No,
I
we
think
didn't.
This was a really great episode.
It's because the discussion that we have here is sparking additional discussion.
Right.
There are aspects of it where it's like, okay, we can all agree on this, right? But then there's other parts of it where we have to keep the conversation going.
Right.
And that's really at the heart of this. And I hope that people listen to the whole thing and think about it that way rather than say, I have to feel one way or another way.
Right.
Because that's part of sportsmanship. Like you said, that cognitive dissonance.
Yes.
That's important. So, Sean, thank you.
Of course.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We will be back in 2 very short weeks. As always, you can check us out online at osipfoundation.org. Contact the show via the email address podcast@osipfoundation.org, at facebook.com/osipfoundation, X formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram at osipfoundation, #HowYouPlayTheGame. And until we talk to everybody, treat each other with respect.
How You Play the Game is a production of the OSIP Foundation, Incorporated. The producer-engineer of this episode is Sean Ryan. Music by Soundspring Studio. The executive producer of How You Play the Game is Jack Furlong. For more information, visit osipfoundation.org.